Okay, today we're working on the fin system for my Mistral takeoff here. As you'll see from the footage, the fin boxes were really badly damaged and they're cracked, and I can't really restore the original system. And not to mention, I don't actually have the parts to restore it with anyway, so I've needed to come up with a new solution to actually hold these fins into the board. I didn't really want to glue them in. I want to be able to still take them out. And I also want to support a bit of the original functionality, which means that I can actually adjust the angle on them, or if they hit something, allow them to move a little bit. So with that said, my first attempt at doing this involved coming up with a little insert that would sit inside the board, inside the fin box system. It's got a little 6mm by 6mm piece of brass. Let me just get the actual length on it. It's basically the same size as the insert in the board. It's about 30 to 32 millimeters long, and it's 6mm square. Then I actually put in two 4mm threaded holes. So I tapped using just a normal drill. I tapped into the brass with a 3.3mm drill, and then I actually used a tapping tool to put a thread into it so I could support these two stainless steel bolts that have got a sort of a socket head on them, you know, one you can do up with an Allen key like this. And then I bought a piece of nylon sheet that I cut. It's about the same width. It's about 6mm as well, wide. And then I cut a little piece so it could kind of slide up and down. Drilled some holes in it so that these bolts would run through it. And then I drilled a hole through the front here. And that's what would go in the fin, on that little fin sort of pivot point. And then that would sit in the board, and then the fin could move, or I could actually lock it in place just by tightening these bolts down, pulls everything down. Now this system seems to work okay. I feel it's a little bit complicated. And also it was really hard when this is actually in the board and the fin is in the board, trying to actually get these bolts here to line up with the hole. So, you know, there's not a lot of space in there, and trying to get these bolts to precisely line up with the holes that I drilled into this piece of brass was really difficult. So I've come up with a new solution, much simpler, and it looks like this. So we're still using the concept of the brass that's going to sit in the bottom of the fin box, but now we've got a couple of little stainless steel risers here. When it's not put together, they look like this. So it's probably the best way to show it. And these are 4mm. And then a couple of little shorter 4mm bolts that can just screw onto the top like that. And they've got the socket head on them as well. And then instead of having that complex piece of nylon that I shaped and cut, all I've got now is just a little thin piece of nylon like this. It's actually from a nylon strap, you know, a nylon tie. And the idea is the whole thing will sit inside the board, and you just undo one of these little screws here, swing this piece of nylon strap away. In fact, I'll angle the camera and you can see exactly how this works. All right. So we're going to pop this little piece inside the board here. I might just loosen that off a touch. Got it tied all the way down. Now, of course, each fin has two of these. All right. And we can place the fin in the board. And that little pivot goes between the two stainless steel sort of shafts that you saw. These little risers. And then this little piece of nylon swings around and goes over the top like that. And then this little bolt goes through there, and I can actually probably tighten it up with my fingers to some degree. As long as I've drilled all my holes in the right spot, everything will line up. So just tighten that up. Now, if I pull this all the way down, if I tighten this all the way up, this fin really can't get out. It can move a touch, but it really can't go anywhere. If I pull it forward or pull it backward as though it's hit a sandbar, nothing happens, doesn't matter what I do to it. Now, if I loosen these off, then I can allow things to flex a bit more. And now the fin can actually move if it hits something. So it's a bit of a caveman solution, I guess, but it works. Now, truthfully, I'm probably going to have the fin sitting back a little bit like this anyway. I sail in pretty shallow water. I know the water very well, and I will just have it kind of tied down like that. You know, if I had the one in the other side, it wouldn't move at all, actually. You know, or if I tied these right down, it wouldn't move at all. So that's the system that I'm going to run with here. So really what it consists of is a little piece of 6x6mm brass rod that's cut to roughly the size of the insert in the board, about 32mm. Then I've got two little holes that are 4mm each, and they are separated. They're in the middle of the brass, and they're separated at about 9mm from the center of each hole. So 9mm apart. And then I tapped a 4mm thread into here. Remember, I drill with a drill that's a little bit smaller than 4mm, so about 3.3mm, and then I use the tapping tool to actually tap a thread in, just hand tapping, very easy. Then I have these little risers, these little stainless steel risers. Now these are 4mm, and the part that's the riser on it is, let me see, that's about 14 millimeters long here, and they just screw into here. And you can use like a Loctite thread, tighten it or really hold them in place, two of those. Then I have a little 4mm socket headed stainless steel bolt, and that will screw into the top there. And then in between those, I've made these little nylon caps, little straps. That's what stops the fin popping out. Now these have got holes that are slightly drilled over 4mm, so they easily can support these bolts. The rough length of them, for what it's worth, they're about 26mm long. You could make it longer, it doesn't really matter too much. The main thing is that the holes are separated by the same distance that the holes are separated in the brass insert here. So if I actually measure this one, I know it won't be perfect because I did it by eye. So the holes in this one are about 8, so pretty close, 8 or 9mm, and they're slightly oversized, so I've got a little bit of wiggle room. And the great thing about this system is it means you can still take your fins out, and you really only have to undo one of these little bolts. I'm just going to take this one out now, and just unscrewing them all the way out. Now I can push the this little piece of nylon away, or in fact I could probably just pull the fin out. So I'm just going to move that little piece of nylon out of the way there, and now the fin can come out. Now of course I would have two of these, and then if I want to, I can lift the whole system out. That just comes out like that.